तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीवदाततं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिदा जनाः. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We're on page 699. This is the chapter, The Master's Birthday, and the date is Wednesday, February 25th, 1885. Sri Ramakrishna was at the house of Girish Ghosh in Boshpara Lane, Calcutta. It was about 3 o'clock when M arrived and prostrated himself before him. The master was going to see a play at the Star Theatre. He was talking with the devotees about the knowledge of Brahman. This may be something like the third play that he's seen, something like that. He's been now several times. One of the first times when he really, he had seen Girish earlier, but really met him was at the Star Theatre. Master. Man experiences 3 states of consciousness: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Those who follow the path of knowledge explain away the 3 states. According to them, Brahman is beyond the 3 states. It is also beyond the gross, the subtle, and the causal bodies, and beyond the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. All these are maya, like a reflection in the mirror. The reflection is by no means the real substance. Brahman alone is the substance, and all else is illusory. Now, what we have here is a little bit of a mixture of 2 different doctrines, separate doctrines, actually. The point of the analysis of the 3 states of consciousness is to show the witnessing consciousness that is present in all 3 states and that identifies with the waking body or the dream body or the dreamless sleep body. And that's the unchanging reality. The question of whether the waking state is real or the dream state, or are they similar, this does not arise in this type of analysis. This is a second type of analysis. We can say that if we analyze the dream state and the waking state, that we don't find any difference from the experiential point of view. So that in every respect, the dream will seem equally as real as the waking state. We all have this experience that while we're having a dream, we take it for granted that everything we see is real. We take it for granted that there are other objects, there are other people. We take it for granted that when we speak, other people have their own consciousness and can hear us. Otherwise, we won't do anything in the dream. So all of these things we take for granted. We wake up and we find that it was all a projection of the mind of the sleeper, and there were no real objects. The objects in the dream were simply mental projections. They had no independent existence. And the other people in the dream, they were just also projections of the mind of the dreamer, and whether they had any consciousness of their own. When we wake up, we come to the conclusion that that was also just part of the dream. So we could conclude that this is also true in the waking state. We could conclude that, or at the very least, we can say that there's no hard evidence to convince us that this is also not possibly a dream that we could wake up from. So at least that much, that while we're in the midst of it, the midst of the waking state, 100% real, in the midst of the dream state, 100% real, or we can say that looking at it from above, we can say the dream is 100% unreal, and the waking state could also be the same as the dream. Even right now, there's no reason for us to reject the idea that the next second we could possibly awake and we find ourselves lying in bed and we say, I had the funniest dream that I went to the Vedanta Center. I was listening to the Swami talk about dreams. Isn't that strange? Huh? So there's no reason this could be a dream, but there's also no reason to conclude that just because the dream is like that the waking state is like that. So this is a different issue, and from the point of this Avastatraya Vichara, this analysis of the three states, it's almost based on the idea that each of the three states has its own type of reality, and they're all different. When we read, this is mostly from this Mandukya Upanishad. When we read the description of the waking state and the description of the dream state, they're different. It doesn't say that both of them, that the objects in the waking state are equally unreal as they are in the dream state. It doesn't say that. It will make a very basic distinction between the dream being something private and the waking state being something public and shareable. That in this waking state, of course, it's the same assumption that I make in the dream state. When I wake up from the dream, then I realize that that was only because of the dream. In the waking state, we have an assumption that there are actually independent people and objects and things that will go on existing even without me. If I should collapse this very second and pass into the realm of the Divine Mother, you would all still be sitting here. This is the way we understand the waking state, right? In the dream state, if I should pass away in the dream state, we assume that that's the end of the dream and no one else will exist anymore because there's no independent existence. So this...
There can be joint also. One time I had a dream that some singer, there's a record playing in the Kaliputta time, Shama Shangi, then I am dreaming that the artist is singing in front of me.
Yeah, no, see, if we accept the reality of the waking state and the relationship between the waking state and the dream state, this is very standard. This is the way any Western psychologist or psychiatrist will explain things, that there'll be things that are triggered, that we can dream of something that actually took place earlier or will take place, or there'll always be a connection, psychological connection. Yeah, but that's based on the fact that there has to be something real in the beginning. There has to be something that will form the basis for the dream. If we trace everything back to projection out of mind, this mind has to be connected to something. So in the waking state, we explain everything in terms of the reality of the object and the fact that we perceive things through the senses. See, the whole analysis of the Panchakosha doctrine, that the individual is composed of a physical body. This is accepted. Physical body. It's transitory, we know, but still, that it's not an imagined body, it's a physical body, and senses and mind and intellect and all of these other things, that the purpose, again, of that analysis is not to say what's absolutely real and what's not real. It's the purpose of that is to say that there's a reality that we call the real self, which is consciousness, which is beyond all of them. So I've spoken on various occasions about the Western branch of philosophy called phenomenology. And phenomenology will explain everything in terms of phenomenon, that it won't make any decisive decision with regard to the status of the external object, that it's an object of experience, very much what Vedanta will do. This is drishya, whether drishya, that means which is seen literally, but in a dream it's also drishya, it's also something that's seen, that's experienced, even though in the dream there's no perception. Perception requires real senses and a real object and real light bouncing off of it. It requires all of that. In a dream, we say that we see things, but it's really because we dream things. If we have a dream that we close our eyes and don't see anything at that time, it's not because the senses aren't functioning, it's because we dreamt that we closed our eyes. In the waking state, it's strictly a function of cutting off the senses from the mind. So there's a basic distinction that's made, but from the point of phenomenology, the experience is the same, whether the object is a dream object or a real object. That we still have these two things. We have the experiencer and the object of experience. This is the whole point of this, what we call Durig Drisha Viveka. This is the famous text that was written by Shankaracharya to distinguish between the real subject and the object. And it doesn't matter how we ultimately explain the status, metaphysical status of the object. It's an object for consciousness. Equally, if it's a dream, it's an object for consciousness. If it's a mirage, if it's a hallucination, if it's a real perception, it's still an object for consciousness. We have the witness, and what the witness is witnessing, if that's real or unreal, from a metaphysical point of view, is secondary to the analysis of the three states of consciousness. So you'll never find this Mandukya Upanishad any attempt to say that, well, the waking state and the dream state are the same, to conflate the two of them. It's not based on that type of thinking. It's based on this idea that this so-called or seemingly ego sense connected with its physical body, that can slide into the identification with the dream body. And how do we explain it? How do we explain the sense of identification so that when we wake up, we say that I dreamt that I did so-and-so, that I of the dreamer and the I of the actor are the same I. It's not a projection, it's not imagination, it's not anything, it's the same. Because the sense of I is 100% the same in the dream state as it is in the waking state. Only when we wake up, we say that, well, the body that I thought that I was in was not a physical body of flesh and blood like this one that I have now. It was just a dream body. So somehow later in Vedanta, or through a different type of analysis, this question came that, well, now can we try to analyze what is the nature of the dream state and what is the nature of the waking state of this object that we see, if it's only a phenomenon, because we only see a thing as it appears to us. We never see a thing as it really is. We only know it as it appears through our senses. So take color, for example, that there's nothing absolute about color. If the eyes reacted in a different way from light bouncing off of objects, what we call green might be blue. There are people, colorblind people. There are animals that only see in black and white. So we can't say the color belongs to the object. We can't say that something is very sweet. Why do we say that the sweetness belongs to an object? It creates this chemical reaction in the tongue which sends a message to the brain, that slips over to the mind somehow, that something tastes sweet. Now there'll be people that they don't like the taste of sweet. There'll be people who like the taste of bitter things. That if we were constructed in a different way, what one people think it's sweet will taste sour. So it's all a question of the senses. So this objective external world, we understand that there's no such thing as a perfectly objective external world. We've been reading in Panchadashi that this combination of objective and subjective, that there is a world there. We superimpose many things on it. But is the whole thing a superimposition? Now, this is another interesting point. I just thought of it earlier today. The snake and the rope. Now, or take a mirage. We see an oasis in the distance. Now, this sand that we see, the people that we're traveling with, the caravan, all of that are real and actual. There's no superimposition. There's no imagination. There's no projection. It's only the mirage part. Now, if we want to say that the whole thing is a mirage, then we have to include our own physical body. We have to include the mind, everything. We're all part of that whole thing. Yeah, we just read this morning in the gospel that Ramakrishna says, you want to call the world unreal, then you are also equally unreal, and the one who's asking the question is also unreal. Yeah. So there are some flaws, I would say, or weak points in this idea. It is called subjective idealism. This idea that everything is a projection, that because I perceive it, it exists. Famous doctrine of Berkeley and some others, that this body and these eyes, if they're real, then everything else has to be real. If I say this chair is unreal, just a projection, and then this hand is unreal, this body, this eye, the brain is all part of that dream world, of that projected world. So the conclusion of Vedanta is generally more in line with this idea that unreality means something is transitory, that something is not exactly what it appears to be, that the underlying reality is hidden by the appearance of it, but not that it's just a pure imagination or projection. This is called pratibhasika. And what we find is that there's an acceptance of this external world as we normally think of it. This is called vyavaharika point of view. That it says for a while, suspend any judgment regarding the real nature of things and take it at face value. Western philosophy, it's called naive realism. That the human condition, we just accept it. We don't know why or how things are the way that they are, but we just kind of accept it, that the dream is a projection of the mind of the dreamer. But in the waking state, we have senses, we have a brain, we have a mind, we have external objects, that we see things because of light, we hear things because of vibration, everything we read in Vedanta, especially from the Sankhya point of view, will be based on the reality of the external object and the sense organ and the mind. That everything's sparsha, everything is contact. Now, there can't be contact unless there's a real object, unless there's a real sense, and there's a real mind. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna is always substituting anitya for mithya. Unless he's specifically talking about the Jnanis believe this or that this idea that everything is transient. From that point of view, everything is dreamlike, because everything has a beginning and an end. Everything is floating down this river of time. Everything is just, we try to hold on to it and we can't hold on to it. That this whole life is floating by. So it's a dreamlike. We can accept that. It's a very beautiful way of understanding things and leading to detachment, and to understand that I've been observing this throughout the whole lifetime. That's the real I. This is the analysis of the three states of consciousness. this other analysis that if in the dream world it's possible to feel that we're seeing objects when they don't exist, then perhaps it's the same case in the waking state. But this is all tentative type of philosophical speculation, we can say. For Sri Ramakrishna, he prefers. Now, he doesn't say that this is call the world unreal like a dream, that this is false. He never says that. He says the Jnani will like to do that it may be helpful for some people. The attitude that he prefers is that this Brahman has a Shakti, a power to it. And this is more the typical Upanishadic idea that through that power, that Brahman itself creates this universe, with itself being the material cause. So Brahman, this universe is spun out of Brahman like the spider's web, and then like the spider, it dwells within it, and then at the end can withdraw it again. So this idea of the unreality of the world for Sri Ramakrishna is more of a way of understanding detachment, and it's dualistic from the point of view that we're making a distinction between sat and asat, real and unreal, that which is changing and that which is unchanging. All of this is based on the idea that there's consciousness, there's Atman and Anatman, and there's the non-self, that everything that we see. Now, ultimately, can we reduce everything we see to Maya? This will be the Jnanis, yes. And for the Shaktas or for others, everything will be traced back to the Brahman itself. These are different schools of thought with different ways of trying to understand this universe, and they're all legitimate for the reason that we only know the surface of things. This is one of the nice teachings of phenomenology, that there's no way that we can say what the thing is in itself. We only know it as an object of our perception. Even Einstein and others now, with quantum physics, they make a big point about that even these molecules and other subatomic things, that they're affected, they behave in one way when they're being perceived, another way when they're not. I don't understand these things, of course, but so this is why we really have to separate these two things. So man experiences three states of consciousness: waking, dream, and deep sleep. So we can assume that the waking state, that it's a shared universe, that everybody is real, objects are real, of course transitory, and nothing will last forever, but real. And the dream state is projection out of the mind of the dreamer based on the subconscious or the nature of the dreamer in the waking state. All of the experiences that we have in the waking state will get translated into the dream. So even for the dream, there has to be a waking state. So according to them, Brahman is beyond the three states. So this is the point of Mandukya Upanishad when we read that. And not that the waking state is also like the dream state, unreal, but that I am the observer, that is just not the slightest bit changed from the dream state, where I seem to be observing things through the eyes of the actor in the dream. I'm not seeing anything through the eyes of the actor in the dream. I'm simply having a dream. The dreamer is having a dream. The eyes do not function in a dream. Huh? Do they? Do the senses work in a dream? They appear to, but we don't hear things. I mean, do we have a brain in a dream? Unless we dream that we have a brain, we don't have a brain. If our dream is that we're a brain surgeon, we're cutting open somebody's head and we see a brain, then we can say, yes, there's a brain there. But otherwise, nothing is dependent on anything except the mind of the dreamer. As opposed to the waking state, we may be wrong. This may be also a dream. We'll wake up and say, I was fooled. This was also a dream. That none of this is really, there's no perception. It's not because of the brain or the eyes or anything that Brahman is dreaming all of this and identifying. It's also one way of looking at this. But for me, this is very difficult and almost a dead end trying to understand this universe. So I like Thakur. I like, I like his idea that the Brahman has this power of Maya. This power of Maya is Shakti. It's a power that can create this whole universe. We become a part of it. We forget our real nature. But through this analysis of the three states of consciousness, we can understand that the real I is not dependent on this physical body and these senses or anything, because it functions equally in the dream state. And in the dreamless sleep state, the observer is also there, but this only is this empty mass of consciousness. There's nothing for it to observe. So there's only a feeling of some passage of time and a little bit feeling of restfulness. That I slept nicely. I didn't think about anything. Just time went by. We can say I was merged in Brahman at the time, but wasn't aware of it. But some feeling is there. Okay. Now, yeah. So then for the Jnani will extrapolate from this and start talking about what is the nature of this so-called waking state. Is it really different? So it says, all these are Maya. Now remember, this is according to the Jnani. All these are Maya, like a reflection in a mirror. The reflection is by no means the real substance. Brahman alone is the substance, and all else is illusory. Now, this illusory word I've mentioned so many times, it's nice to know what Thakur actually says. Sometimes he says avastu, sometimes asad, sometimes anitya. You have the Bengali there. What does he say? After that. Bostu noy. Yeah. Aha, okay. So here, see, we have sad and asad. We have nitya, anitya. We have vastu and avastu. This avast, all of these words have two sets of meanings. This vastu is something substantial. Even mithya, if we say mithya, philosophically, it can mean something really illusory. The other meaning of it is that it's just something vanity, in vain. Mitche, that it's nothing that we should take too seriously. Of us do same thing, that we have a person can be a man of substance, or somebody can be apadartha, a worthless person. It doesn't mean non-existent person. So we can look at this world as it has nothing that can satisfy the longing of my heart. That if you delve into it, there's no real substance to it. In terms of the ability to give me what I'm looking for in life, not non-existent. Again, this Panchadashi makes a big distinction between something being unreal and something being non-existent. Yeah, this mithya or satya and abhava. It's not that things don't exist, that we're just imagining them or something, but from this idea of vastu, that this is an emotional type of response to things, that I don't find anything of lasting value in these things in the world, in so-called objects that people run after. I don't find anything of any real lasting value, that should be my goal in life, to accumulate all of these things. But for the Jnani, it's taken a little bit more literally, that just a reflection in the mind of Brahman. It's a nice idea, but very hard to really get a hold of. And then how do we live in the world with this type of idea? This is why when we look at Swamiji's Jnana Yoga, how everything will be real nature of the self, and this idea of the world, that yes, nothing permanent, nothing to hold on to, but at the same time, nothing to dismiss. And if we really look at this world as unreal, then everyone else's suffering is unreal. But for him, this is the thing that touches his heart more than anything, to observe suffering of others. That requires us to have some belief, in the existence of the world, even though we know that we're at complete loss is how to explain how this universe comes into existence. What happens to it when we leave this world? How much is it dependent on our experience of it? These are all questions for the philosophers. They're helpful for some. Some people like them. For me, I think they're all dead end types of questions. We run into this wall that we can't go beyond. That's why they say religion begins where philosophy ends. We reach a point beyond which we can say, no, the mind can't go beyond that. This rational mind can only go that far. This reality is beyond mind and speech. The Upanishads, of course, tell us this over and over again. The knowers of Brahman say further that it's the identification of the soul with the body that creates the notion of duality. These things we can accept 100%, because this is the aparoksha. This is the direct experience we have. Experience of the world is always mitigated and always a secondary type of experience, because it's coming through the senses or through the mind. The experience of the self is direct. It's direct. I know that I exist. And I know that I'm the experiencer of every thought, of every object, of every perception, of every imagination. I know that. So the knowers of Brahman say further that it's the identification of the soul with the body. Now, body we have to take as the, not just physical body, but the mental body and causal body. So this is 100% clear, and this everybody can relate to this. This, I think, is that part of this jnana yoga which is tremendously helpful. That I don't know that I'm the self, that I identify with everything limited and small, and I suffer because of that. Forget about is the world real or unreal? Forget about that. That I know that I'm so identified with this personality. I'm identified with what we call upadhis. This will be, what are the things we identify with? We identify with our personality. We identify with our religion. We identify with our place of origin. We identify with our political party. Identify with our career. These are all the things that people, and everyone to a different degree. Yeah. For some people, their politics will be number one, religion number one for others. You have somebody who's a renowned scholar, pundit. Everything is that I'm a pundit. That's everything. Are they handsome? Are they ugly? They don't care about that. Their pride is in their brilliance, that I'm a pundit. So everyone identifies with a different type of upadhi. Now, the difficulty comes very often. Say somebody's been a doctor whole lifetime, then they retire. Where's their sense of identification? They lose that. Very often they flounder. They don't know who they are or what they are. They get so identified with the profession and with other things like that. So this is a very common experience for everyone. But some people, their sense of identification is almost 100% with the body. Bodybuilders, models, people who they make a living out of their physical features or physical attributes. Everything is, and go to the gym and do this and do that. This is the most important thing for them. You take an Einstein, you ask him, what clothes are you wearing? Close your eyes. What clothes are you wearing? What color are the pants? They'll have no idea. Yeah. Did you comb your hair this way? They have no idea. They know the difference. But there will always be some type of identification. Now, the Jnani, the real, the knower of Brahman, will be, I am that one which is the eternal observer throughout all of time of whatever presents itself to the mind of this body-mind complex. That's who I am. And that I is that one with the Brahman. So that'll be the sense of identity. That'll be the ego of the jnani. It's an ego, but this is a perfectly ripe ego. This is what Thakur says, that we all have a different type of ego. Some are completely raw and unripe. That means no sense of ourselves as having any spark of divinity within, or having anything beyond the mind and the senses. No conception of that. And to the highest point of view, where whatever I did with this lifetime, that I was the observer of that period of my life when I was a lawyer, that period of life when I was a student, that period of life when I was retired, that I've been observing. I've been the witness of that throughout the whole lifetime. And that I is the source of my sense of identification throughout the whole lifetime. That has never changed. That's how I can feel that I'm the same person that I was. That's how I can feel when I sit for meditation, that I exist without having to think that I exist as anything, that I exist as a male or a female. No, I just exist as existence, as consciousness. I know that I am. Nobody can tell me that I don't exist. Not anything to do with physical existence, that I exist as consciousness. So this is jnana yoga. The point that I keep making is that we don't have to come to any conclusion with regard to how did this physical universe come into existence. Thakur tells us over and over again that this is we'll never come to a conclusion for that. Like trying to pour 5 seers of water into 1 seer container. They said it can't be done. Enough if we say that anything is possible in the world of God for Divine Mother. Otherwise, we'll never come to any satisfactory conclusion that everyone will agree upon. But this idea of the nature of the self, of course, there'll be differences of opinion, but it's something experiential. I know that I am, and I know that I've been, that I have a sense of I that has been unchanging in the midst of the sense of constant change of the sense of I, according to the empirical ego. That's always changing. Always changing. When we're small children, when we're teenagers, when we start a career, each sense of I is different because we're identified with different aspects of our life and personality. But the fact that I don't think that each stage of life is a different person. I am that one. Yeah, we need that connecting link. That real I is there. Yeah.
That right ego that you just described of being an awareness, it's really hard to hold on to. I feel it sometimes, but
this okay. This is the question. This ripe ego. Yes, we can get a sense of it. We can be convinced of it. We can even have the experience of it. But can we hold on to it? Yes. Sri Ramakrishna says that this is the nature of Maya, that even that will get covered over. Will get covered over, but not to the point where that conviction dies out, not to the point where we don't know that that's our true nature. So he says that this ego, when this ego dies, that it leaves its seed there. It doesn't really, just like the mind, we say manonasha, the mind doesn't really get destroyed. For the time being, it gets merged. But we go back and the mind is there again. So yeah, we clean all the scum off of the water and we see perfectly clear water underneath. And he says the next minute the wind comes and covers it over again. So there's one of Thakur's great teachings that this I doesn't leave a person completely. So he says utilize it. Let that rascal I remain as the servant or have a relationship with God. So what about the Jnani? Jnani lives in the world with the ego, I am he. That's also an ego. Ego means how do I look upon myself? What is my sense of I? My sense of I is I'm one with the ultimate reality. But the Jnani who has that feeling still has a sense of not identification with the body, but at least being the indweller of the body. Say, I become a God-realized soul, I won't confuse myself with anybody else. I'm still seeing through these eyes and hearing with these ears, and all that part won't change. I'll still have my whole history, my whole memory, all of those things, but I'll have a different sense of myself, the real nature of the self. But even say, look at Totapuri, perfectly God-realized soul, samadhi and everything, and just in a flash, that how he loses his temper and gets so angry when Hridaya comes and tries to light his chilim from the fire. So Thakur left. But this is the nature of the self, the nature of Maya, we can say, the nature of this ego, that we analyze it. Thakur says, you analyze it, you won't find it. You pull all the layers of the onion off until there's nothing there, and you won't find anything there. You find this pure, infinite, absolute reality space there. But the next moment, this feeling of I will come back. It's a feeling. It's a conception that we have. It's an idea. This is ego, what we call this ego. It's an idea of who I am, how I look upon myself. Maybe completely different from the way somebody else looks upon me. There's some people, their ego is such that they think that nobody likes me, that I'm a worthless person, this and that. Other people may think, oh, such a nice person. Yeah, so valuable. We're so happy to have this person as a friend. So it's all a conception of the mind. And there'll be some people who will think, how powerful and strong, how everyone obeys me, how much they respect me. And you talk to people, we can't stand it, we can't bear this person. What can we do? We pretend we respect this person. So we can have great misconceptions even about the empirical ego. So, but yes, to maintain that attitude, we almost have to remain in that state of samadhi. Otherwise, we come back down, and some sense of I will come back. Thakur will talk about that. So, the knowers of Brahman. So, Sri Ramakrishna, in perfect agreement with all of this. Say further that it is the identification of the soul with the body. And again, that means this whole body-mind complex that creates the notion of duality. If I'm identified with this particular body-mind combination, then I see everybody else also as separate, all individuals. So duality also has many different layers and different contexts and different ways of understanding. A duality can mean that the duality between consciousness and between Purusha and Prakriti. There is a physical reality, there is a consciousness, and they somehow can intermingle, and that's how we explain everything, that type of duality. Or the duality can be between myself and God, or the lower self and the higher self, and myself and everybody else. That type of duality. This is talking about that second type. This creates the notion of duality, the notion of feeling of separateness. I'm separate from everybody else. The more I identify, physical body, 100% separate. Appearance-wise, separate. Men and women, how different they are appearance-wise. You get to subtler things. Then we start to feel that, yes, he's a scientist, I'm a scientist, that we belong to the same political party, we belong to the same, we start to feel some connection. So the higher that we get to that feeling that I am the self, then we feel one with everybody. So this sense of duality comes from more we identify with the lower self, the apparent self. In that state of identification, the reflection appears real. When this identification disappears, a man realizes, I am he, I am Brahman. Now the reflection appears real. We can take this as the external universe. To me, that's not helpful. For me, this identification of the reflection means with this body-mind, all of that. I always take it that way, the snake in the rope. To me, if the snake in the rope means that this external universe, that I'm seeing nothing but consciousness, I'm seeing nothing but Brahman itself, and thinking that it's a physical object, that doesn't resonate with me very much. It's a very difficult concept. But if I'm trying to find the self within, and what I see is the superimposition of body, mind, and senses, the snake. That's keeping me from seeing the rope, which is the real self. That makes perfect sense to me. I like that idea. Otherwise, I think we run into trouble when we take it literally. Because again, the rope and the snake, are we also misreading everything else there? I mean, there are trees, everything else. Is it only the rope and the snake that we're confused about? Yeah. So if we look at it just with regard to this external universe and experience, to me, it's a little bit confusing. I'll just put it that way. It doesn't resonate with me. But if we're talking about that, I ask, who am I? I look inside of myself, and I see a snake there. I see this a little meanness, some bad qualities, this and that, and all because I don't see the real self there. This is covered by these upadhis. That real self is the rope, which is Brahman. Does it make sense? Yeah. Devotee. Then shall we all follow the path of reasoning, Master? Reasoning is one of the paths. So this is the, I would say, genius of Sri Ramakrishna. Everybody else, when they talk about their own path, they're all in this realm of somehow absolute knowledge that this is true. You should follow this. This is the, or if not true, this is the best explanation of reality. For Sri Ramakrishna, it was all which one is best for the individual. That there's no absolute. The truth is not found in doctrines or dogmas. Swamiji says that truth is found in experience, direct experience. And the truth of a thing is something that we get when we have the experience. And even then, we can't explain everything. We hear about a person. All my life, I wanted to meet this person. I've heard so many good things about this person. Finally, I meet that person. Does it mean that I know each and everything about that person? No. But now I have the real experience of that person. So this was the emphasis, of course, that Thakur gave for all of this. So when he's asked, then shall we all follow the path of reasoning? He says, reasoning is one of the paths. It is the path of the Vedantists. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, now we'll say we're all Vedantists. But when he says Vedantists, it means those following the path of Jnana Yoga exclusively. Because the Vedanta, if we take it to mean the Upanishads, then we don't have all of the bhakti yoga teachings that we'll get later in Gita and Puranas and everything. It's really the path of knowledge. We won't get this avatar idea. Many things we won't get. So when he says according to Vedanta, he means to the strict Upanishadic type of Jnana Yoga. But there is another path, the path of bhakti. If a bhakta weeps longingly for the knowledge of Brahman, we can analyze with his little mind and try to break through this ceiling, break through the ceiling of Maya with the help of the mind, and we'll find that the more we try, the more we get confused, the more we get identify ourselves with the mind and the thinking person. It's really we can just go in circles, just go around in circles that way. But if we go through the heart center, that and somehow go deeper, when we say dive deep, that we're going beneath the thinking part of the mind to the feeling part, to have that awakening of the heart. Now, there's a little footnote here that says usually the idea of a bhakta is the ideal of a bhakta is the vision of the personal God. So this is another distinction for Sri Ramakrishna. The devotee will also attain this Brahmajnana, the highest type of wisdom. May not care for it, may not want to go around saying, I am he, who maybe would prefer to have a relationship with God, but the bhakta is not destined to always feel a sense of separation from God, to feel that no, the devotee can never be one with God. It's a blasphemy. This is very often the position of the bhaktas, the real followers of the different personal God paths. So, reasoning is one of the paths. It is the path of the Vedantis, but there's another path, the path of bhakti. If a bhakta weeps longingly for the knowledge of Brahman, he receives that as well. So this footnote is meant to show that this is not the typical statement that any of the bhakti teachers will make. They'll say that through this bhakta weeps longingly for God, one will have the vision of the Ishta Devata. But here he says, weeps longingly for the knowledge of Brahman, he receives that as well. Then he says, these are the two paths, jnana and bhakti. Now, two paths, because jnana yoga, we can include Raja Yoga, and bhakti yoga, we can include karma yoga. Karma yoga, that's done, everything is done as an offering. So, but there's two, jnana marga and bhakti marga, these are two rather distinct paths for people with two different attitudes. Now, for the followers of Ramakrishna, I think for most of us, we don't want to see opposition between the two. We want to be able to blend them and to utilize, to understand how this apparent self is grounded in the real self, how the relationship with the individual with the personal God is grounded in the oneness of pure consciousness, to not be stuck in this old idea. If we want to be devotees, we have to be dualists. And if we're dualists, we have to be devotees. That even dualism and non-dualism, whatever, that these are different attitudes that we have. This is the great Hanuman ideal. If I'm identified with the body, I have one attitude. I'm your servant. If I identify with the jiva, then I'm a part of you. If I feel that I'm the Atman, then we're one and the same. All three are legitimate, and are all three true. Truth is beyond all of that. Yeah, true from a relative standpoint, but for Thakur, truth is experience. It's not in these different conceptions that we have. One may attain the knowledge of Brahman by either path. Some retain bhakti even after realizing Brahman in order to teach humanity. Sri Ramakrishna had the highest experience of Nirguna Brahman and remained in that state for 6 months, was grounded in that, even after Totapuri left, for some years before the other devotees came. His mind would mostly dwell in that realm of oneness. And yet, how he had that relationship with the Divine Mother, and how it was never in conflict with that. Some retain bhakti even after realizing Brahman in order to teach humanity. An incarnation of God is one of these. He's talking from his own experience. A man cannot easily get rid of the ego. So this is what you're saying. Yes. And the consciousness that the body is the soul. Again, this whole body-mind complex. It becomes possible only when, through the grace of God, now we'll get bhakti and jnana together, through the grace of God, he attained samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, jada samadhi. So this completely getting rid of this ego, we can't live in the world without an ego. To completely get rid of the ego means we're preparing to depart from this world. It's not something that should be our goal. Our goal should be to see through this ego, to see through it, not see it as something so real and permanent and unbending and unchanging, and to utilize it. We'll have this wonderful idea of this Vidyamaya Shakti, that it belongs to Maya, yes, that If I say that I'm a lawyer, there's false identification. If I say that I'm a servant of God, also false identification from the highest point of view. But the second one is the good one that will get rid of the first one. It's the second thorn that gets rid of the first thorn. So we don't reject this other one. We utilize it. Utilize this sense of I. So if we have that nirvikalpa samadhi state, then we know for certain that even when the mind is not functioning, that I exist as pure consciousness, as one with the Brahman. Even that cannot be explained and not really be put into words. And even that is not experienced. After coming down from that state, well, this is the way one tries to explain it, but there's no experiencer in that state. The ego of the incarnations returns to them when they come down from the plane of samadhi. But then it is the ego of knowledge or the ego of devotion. This depends on what spiritual path we follow. If we're devotional in nature, then we'll have that, again, that relationship ego. If we're a Shankaracharya, it'll be soham, soham, shivoham, shivoham. So through the ego of knowledge, they teach men. Shankaracharya kept the ego of knowledge. Yeah, there's some people who think that Ramakrishna, that somehow he's opposed to some of the teachings of Shankaracharya, that is more aligned with Ramanuja and others. Some theories like that. But Thakur had the highest possible opinion of Shankaracharya. Whenever he talks about this eternally perfect soul, the fully God-realized soul, he'll always use Shankaracharya as the example, who kept the ego of knowledge. Through the ego of devotion, Chaitanya Deva. So here's the other possibility. The extreme the polar opposite will be Chaitanya Deva. Through the ego of devotion, Chaitanya Deva tasted divine love and enjoyed the company of the devotees. He talked about God and chanted his name. So for Sri Ramakrishna, it's a question of personal taste also. In this line from the Ram Prasad song, that I don't want to become sugar, I'd like to enjoy the taste of sugar. That the real dualists will say, I can never become sugar. That's not possible. I'm the taster. The Ram Prasad is saying that, yes, I know that ultimately there's oneness, but I prefer this other little separation to be able to enjoy that, the sweetness of that relationship. Through the ego of devotion, Chaitanya Deva tasted divine love and enjoyed the company of the devotees. He talked about God and chanted his name. Since one cannot easily get rid of the ego, a bhakta does not explain away the states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. He accepts all the states. Further, he accepts the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. A bhakta sees that God alone has become the 24 cosmic principles, the universe, and all living beings. Now, for Sri Ramakrishna, this is the highest spiritual attitude or spiritual experience. He breaks it down into three, that those who feel, yes, I know God exists, but God is transcendent. God is somewhere up in heaven. Says the next highest is seeing God dwelling within all beings. God dwells within me, with every. He said the highest is to see that this is nothing but God. Everything is manifestation of God. So this is the way Sri Ramakrishna sees things. And see, he had both experiences, and sometimes even almost even we can say simultaneously. He's looking at the room and he says, I see everything is Chinmaya. I see everything is made of consciousness. The very next moment he can say, I see all these bodies are just like pillowcases, and that reality is dwelling within. Yeah, what is the difference? Mind, maybe there's a slight different level of the mind, seeing things from slightly different point of view. No contradiction. One, accepting everything just as we see it, but this isn't the real ultimate reality. This is the transitory part of it. This is the body that we all dwell within, the reality within. But from the other point of view, everything is a manifestation of Brahman or Mother, Chinmaya. So just for Ramakrishna, we have to see where's mind, what level his mind is dwelling on when he makes these statements. Otherwise, you can find contradictions, or even contradictions between. This is why Sri Ramakrishna will not find contradictions between even Shankaracharya and Ramanuja and Madhva. He'll say all from different points of view. And Swamiji, how he developed that. He said, you stand in a room, from one corner it looks one way. You go to the middle, it looks a little bit different. You see the same sun. If you're 1,000 miles away, you go closer to it, it'll look double the size. It's the same sun, just from a different point of view. That's all. So, Maudpot, this was really the great teaching of Ramakrishna, that all of these philosophical doctrines are better understood as optional paths that we can take. Or, if we like, in a different mood, we understand that we can relate to each and every one of these in a different mood. So let me just read this one paragraph, then we'll stop. Since one cannot easily get rid of the ego, a bhakta does not explain away the states of waking, dream, and deep sleep. He accepts all the states. Further, he accepts the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. A bhakta sees that God alone has become the 24 cosmic principles, the universe, and all living beings. He also sees that God reveals himself to his devotees in a tangible form, which is the embodiment of spirit. And now this takes us to a whole different level of things that, again, there's so many ways of understanding this. We dive deep within that ocean of consciousness within. We can enter into this realm of this cosmic mind where all different experiences can be there. There's no limit to all of these things. Very hard to explain, but anyhow. Okay, so we'll stop here because now we'll get this idea of Vidyamaya and Avidyamaya. Do that. So we're stopping at the middle of page 700. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukam Bhaturavikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namah. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, thank you everyone, and we will see you next time.